Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champ AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, most of us are drafting now. We are,
Right now.
Right now.
P.S. I
Literally.
hate being on the bookends, but go ahead, get into it.
Whether it's FFPC or underdog, most of us are drafting. I want to talk about not necessarily those top end rounds. Let's talk about some of like these middle to late rounds, about rounds 11 through 15, where a lot of these handcuffs are being taken, and even later on, because that's part of what we talked about in the group chat. Let's talk about running back handcuff philosophy. Like, how do you guys determine which handcuffs to go after? Are all handcuffs kind of seem the same, or like, do you prioritize them? Like, how do you like actually go about your handcuffs?
So all handcuffs are definitely not created equally. And I feel like, this question is one that is tough to answer. Even the question alone is just like not doing it justice. Mm-hmm. I feel like the running back landscape has definitely evolved or changed, and it's just very different than what it was years ago. Years ago, we had clear bell cows, we had clear RB1s, and we had very clear RB2s. So it was a very much straightforward process of I draft my running back, and maybe I draft his handcuff to just lock up that backfield. Yeah. Or I draft my running back, and then I draft a bunch of other handcuffs, and just through attrition, through odds, like I'm going to end up with starting running backs throughout the season and maybe towards the back end of the season if there's a serious injury. Now I feel like the landscape is very, very different. There are very, very few bell cows. There are a lot more running back by committees, and there are specialists now. I feel like not every running back does the same thing. Some guys are primarily used on third downs.
That's kind of a trend, though. Like the specialist backfield is kind of a trend.
So when I'm going through drafts and I see some of these, perceived handcuffs being taken like in the 9th, 8th, 10th round, yes, some of these situations are ambiguous, and we're maybe drafting these guys where maybe now they're the backup, or we're thinking they're going to start off as a backup, and maybe, eventually they can take over the starter role. But some of these guys, I think, are just being drafted, like a Zach Charbonnet, for instance. Are we considering these guys like high-end backups? And in certain situations, like the Seahawks situation, yes, that seems to be a very clear role. But in a lot of other situations, are we quite sure that that handcuff is indeed the backup? Mm-hmm. If we go down the board and we look at some of the top end running backs that are being drafted in the early rounds, and then we look at the RB2 that's being drafted from that very same team, how confident are we that that is the actual handcuff? But then even like the better question is, say that RB1 goes down, how confident are we that that handcuff running back is going to get a majority of the work, going to get 75% of the work, is going to get the passing down work, is going to get the goal line work? An example is like, the Philadelphia Eagles situation with Saquon Barkley. Right now, Shipley is a very popular name because he goes super late. He's everybody's sort of kind of secret dark horse or a potential upside pick. Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe he is that guy. But how sure are we of that? If Saquon goes down, like, is Will Shipley getting 75% of the work? Is he getting 65% of the work? Is he getting the goal line work? Are we just completely ignoring A.J. Dillon?
Offense?
Or is it like just a lot more Jalen Hurts in the pass game? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like a lot of these situations we end up drafting these guys, and again, sometimes it's it's a late round pick, so it doesn't matter. But for some of these guys, like, we don't even know if they're the actual handcuff, and we're drafting them very high, and we're passing up on guys that we can actually potentially use. Like, I know everyone is down on like a Michael Pittman, but you see Michael Pittman go well after a lot of these handcuffs who were in clear handcuff situations, but have, that potential upside should their, lead back goes down. But again, to me, I think a lot of these situations are a lot muddier than we think, and I just always question, are these guys being pushed up too high? Are we, passing up on actual value?
So it's funny that you bring up Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman typically goes around that 10th round. and I'm looking at a lot of running backs who are drafted ahead of Michael Pittman. But, I mean, are we sure that a lot of these, well, one, I think some of these guys are not necessarily the starter, and we don't know if they're necessarily going to be the starter. Dio, tell me, like, do you believe, are you certain that Amarion Hampton is the starter with the Chargers?
Am I certain? No.
With Najee being there?
I actually don't think that at all right now. I mean, at some point he probably will become the starter. Now, I'm usually not in the business of guessing when that happens. I've seen scenarios where the starter, they draft a guy high, but the starter holds the job the whole year, just grooming the guy, and then the guy takes the job over next year. I've seen a situation where the rookie just goes so crazy during camp or just the early part of the season where he just starts the season as a starter.
Right.
So that incumbent just starts the season as a backup. I've seen situations where the player plays so well during the season that they eventually took the job. I've seen situations where it comes from injury. So I've seen all of it, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, it typically has nothing to do with the talent. It's more so the coaches, the system, the situation. So, I don't know.
Scatterbo too. Scatterbo, in this draft that I'm looking at now, one, he's drafted ahead of Tyrone Tracy, and two, but isn't Singletary still there too?
No. He might be.
Yeah, he might be. But those situations, I'm not those situations I understand. Those are ambiguous situations where we don't know who the starter is.
Right.
But I'm talking about clear
and even
situations.
If you do pick the starter, the ceiling is not that high.
Yeah.
Or at least for the.
Yeah, I'm talking about clear,
Giants.
a Jalen Wright, for instance. I would assume he's a starter, but he didn't really do all that
the
well
handcuff?
last year. The handcuff, yeah. I'm assuming he's but what if he's not the handcuff? Or what if Etienne goes down and he splits his role? These situations, we just assume that we know because he was he's going into his second year. He's kind of fresh in our minds as this electric rookie because of his performance at the combine. But how good is he, or how good does the team perceive him to be? And when you look at a lot of these guys, they really weren't all. Just think back to last year, And even if you drafted them as handcuffs with the hope or the idea that, okay, if the starter goes down, this guy's going to be money. When I think back to last year and I think about a lot of these high-end handcuffs, when they had opportunity, a lot of them just did not look good to me. Like a Benson, he at no point looked good to me.
Yeah.
Blake Corum, he looked very average to me, So I just worry, I don't know, I get a little bit at least for me, I don't necessarily want to dedicate those mid-round. I'd rather just go for a rookie wide receiver in the hopes that he could win the route, or even a veteran wide receiver. The whole idea of upside, again, not to go off on a tangent of, the upside pick or the guy, anybody could be an upside pick. I keep saying Danny Woodhead, but it's not Danny Woodhead.
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead is always the example I go to, in the money weeks, the guy who just scored 3 touchdowns and just won a lot of people just a lot of money. Nobody at the beginning of the season was thinking to themselves, Rex Burkhead was an upside pick. And we see this year in and year out where just random guys will go off at various time points in the year. Anybody can be an upside pick. That includes those veteran wide receivers who we may not like because they're old and not because they're sexy, but I feel a lot of those guys are getting passed up for guys who, one, they need an injury to happen, and two, at least my confidence level, again, going back to confidence level, is very questionable, 60, 50% or low on whether or not how sure I am that this is a handcuff.
But you're drafting handcuffs. So what are you looking at when you're looking at the handcuffs that you are drafting? What are you looking for? What is that philosophy and how you're actually picking those?
So
players?
if we just look at running backs being drafted in the first round, I think, or the first 2 rounds, half the guys I'll draft their handcuffs. The other half I'm just going to ignore because I do not know and I don't necessarily know, unless it's super late. The perfect handcuff that goes after a lot of these guys is a Tyler Algier. If Bijan Robinson goes down, I feel I have a pretty strong confidence level that Tyler Algier is going to see 70% of the workload.
Can plug in.
Plug and play. Whereas if a Derrick Henry goes down, I have no idea what the Ravens are going to do. Are they going to bring somebody in? Is it going to be a lot of Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell? I have no clue what they're going to do. Christian McCaffrey, fairly confident it's Isaiah Garando. Isaac Garando. But I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Jordan James, but I'm fairly confident that that's Isaac Garando's back. But there's just a lot of these situations where it's just questionable and not quite sure. And I get, you got to really kind of, take a stand on some of this. But I don't know. What's your take on handcuffs and in drafting these guys, or what's your approach?
So all right, I got to gather my thoughts because I shared this all with y'all pre-show, so I'm trying to remember everything. But so first of all, we talked about my philosophy on handcuffs in past years, right? Mm-hmm. The way I look at handcuffs, I think, and this is the minority by far, I'm sure. Yeah. I've heard nobody else say this but me, but I don't care. I'll stay on the island by myself. But I personally feel like all handcuffs have the exact same value. Mm-hmm. Like every single handcuff has the exact same value. And I don't have a numerical number to put on that, but whatever that value is, the next handcuff has the exact same value as that person. Because the way I see it, so most people have handcuffs ranked, or at least all running backs ranked. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain part when you get to rankings where they start going to handcuffs. Mm-hmm. So, you have your higher ranked handcuff, which most would say one of the higher ranked handcuffs would be Charbonnet. Mm-hmm. He's going pretty high. And then you have your lower ranked handcuffs, which is like you were mentioning before, but like a Will Shipley, maybe even a Justice Hill or Keaton, whatever. So first of all, when it comes to deciding handcuffs, if it's ambiguous, I feel like you just got to take a stand. Pick one. Mm-hmm. Like me, I like to bet on talent, so I would go Keaton Mitchell, even though we saw Justice Hill do his thing last year and they paid him. But regardless, though, all those handcuffs for me are all ranked the same because the way I see it is when you draft these guys on your team, these handcuffs, put them on your bench. They're sitting on your bench, right? You can't play them because they have no value to start the season. Yeah. There's no injuries going on, so they're just there, right? Okay, so again, the scenario, if we have Algier and we have let's say Shipley, it's an easier example. So then you have Algier and Shipley on your bench, and then you have Barkley, or even if you don't got him on your team, Barkley and Bijan playing. Yep. If Barkley stays healthy the whole season, I'll flip it actually. If Bijan stays healthy the whole season, then Algier literally has no value because you can't play him. Yeah. He's going to be on your bench. You can't put him in the star lineup because he's not going to score you. Matter of fact, him being on your bench is actually negative value for you because he takes up a roster spot. Yep. And again, you can't start him. Yeah. And then you can't pick up players, right? You can't pick somebody up to take that spot. And then Shipley, if Barkley goes down for the season week 1, guess what? People will drop Charbonnet to pick up Shipley. Yep. That's how much value Shipley will surpass Charbonnet in that instant. So the way I look at it is when you start the season off, until something happens, some kind of catalyst has to occur. All the handcuffs are the same value. So I say that to say, and I know a lot of people, again, rank their handcuffs. Yeah. You say you ranked your handcuffs in the past. I don't know if you still do, but I know a lot of people rank their handcuffs. So when it comes to drafting, you'll have people drafting Charbonnet in whatever round he's going, probably middle around 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever round he's going. Yeah. And then you have Shipley probably going 18th, 19th round. When I'm drafted, I'm like, when that starts happening, I'll let everybody take all those early handcuffs, and I'll take the late ones because, again, to me, the value is the same. It's totally flat. Now, again, I do understand when certain handcuffs do get in position to be the starter or get those reps, some are probably going to be more talented, play better, get a better role. I get it. But until, again, that catalyst occurs, that's totally irrelevant. Yeah. And we've all done in the past, we've all had these handcuffs which we've held them all season long. Yeah. And then it becomes week 15.
You're pot committed. You can't drop them.
Or if you drop them, it's like, damn, I just had this,
and the week you drop them is the week that,
that's what you're afraid of.
Yeah. And so, I do rank them, but I'm less so ranking based off of, this guy's really good, and more so ranking based off of, this is a clear handcuff, and he's going to get the majority. Yeah, but even then, say okay, I have Zach Charbonnet ranked highly because I like the idea of Kenneth Walker goes down, he's going to take over the majority of that. Even then, I'm still not drafting that guy high.
And by the way, I forgot
the value is just not there for me.
This other point, something that hit me when you mentioned Algier, and you were talking about how people are drafting handcuffs higher or whatever. So I don't know it's a change in philosophy. It's a personal change in my philosophy, right? Because I'm used to just draft Handcuffs, just whatever, willy-nilly.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a community-based change. I would believe it. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it is, and I have nothing to base that on. I'm BSing, but I'm pretty sure it is. That I feel like everybody is now drafting. Okay, I guess the way I can say this is, I'm not looking for handcuffs anymore. I'm looking for usurpers. I'm looking for guys that's gonna come in and take the job. Like whether
you looking for nightmares, not dreamers. Remember that John Gruden? A lot of people come to the league and they dream. Nah, I want you to be a nightmare.
Sure. You know, that's what he said. There you go. Like that. I'm looking for somebody that's gonna come into
I
the
like the House
room.
of the Dragon.
The House of the Dragon.
I live someone's gonna come into the room and show that he's the best running back in the room.
Yeah.
He's gonna take the job. He's not waiting on an injury to occur. He's not waiting for garbage time in the game. He's not waiting for the end of the season when they're resting the starters. He's gonna come in right now and take that job. A la your Bucky Irvins, right? Everybody's always saying, who's this year? Oh, by the way, this is a pet peeve of mine. Right? Just want to put that out there.
What?
Pet peeve of mine when people say, who is this year's such and such? Like everybody's saying that. Who's this year's Berkey Irvin? Last year, who's this year's Puka Nakua? Because I always think to myself, if you're saying who is this year's such and such, before that person became a thing, who was that person the year of, whatever, right? Who was the quote unquote Puka before Puka was Puka, right? So I feel like it's all situational based. People take advantage of opportunities. So, you know, you have, you know,
All right, I want to put you on the
lighting
spot.
on a, you know, type thing.
I want to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Handcuff or usurper? I'm gonna throw out some names. You tell me.
Oh, wait. Okay, but one last thing I want to say. So when it comes to drafting these handcuffs, when you were making comments about, you know, certain people being drafted a little higher than what you would think, I think some people are drafting players because they think they have a chance to usurp the starter or gain that value. So they don't look at it as a safe play. They more look at it as a shoot for, quote unquote, like you're saying, upside type pick. So I think that's probably what they're doing. So I get it.
Yeah, the ambiguous situations, I get that. But I'm gonna ask you a couple players: usurper or handcuff? Trey Benson.
Handcuff.
Okay. Ray Davis.
Usurper. By the way, you made a comment earlier. You didn't like the way Blake Corum and Trey Benson look. I think they actually looked pretty okay last year. They didn't look like superstars, but they looked like if they were forced into the position, I think they would produce fairly okay.
I don't think we saw.
I thought they looked
enough
bad.
of Corum, but
I thought they looked bad. Okay. Jarquez Hunter.
it's too
He's a
early.
usurper. I mean, but come on, that's kind of an obvious one. But I guess
when you say usurper, I'm talking about like Kyron Williams, like he's usurping Kai Williams.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely. But my thing is, the reason why I hesitated, because I'm not 100% sure it's him. Like I still think Corum has a shot.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
But what I am saying is Kyron's job is not safe.
Yeah.
And if you're in Dynasty, you probably need to get rid of him. And you're talking to somebody that's one of the biggest Kyron believers since the beginning. But
okay, I got another one for you.
Nah.
I got another one for you. Okay. Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, and Tootin.
You're not asking usurper or anything. You're just talking
which
about
one? Which
situation?
Usurper,
Well, like
handcuff.
Well, who's
being
being usurped?
I want you. I need you to figure out that whole situation because nobody seems to. That seems to be a very, very kind of muddied backfield.
No,
well,
that's
last
the wrong
year
way for
it
me to
was
discuss
Travis
it.
Etienne's job, and then it seemed like Tank usurped Etienne.
Yeah.
So if I had to look at the hierarchy, I would say Tank, Etienne, and then at this point too.
See, it's hard for me to answer that question because I have to go off the premise that there's going to be usurping occurring.
Okay.
So
who's the starter there?
Okay. I think it's going to be Etienne,
Okay.
Bigsby, and Tootin.
Okay. Last one. Okay.
And I don't think Tootin's taking the job, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. Jaden Blue. Okay. And Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Who's the starter? Who's the backup? Who's out?
Who's out or who's still on the bench? I mean, come on, man. The question, like that kind of question has to be what time of the season are we asking? Are we talking about right now? Are
Well, we're talking about usurper, but then that means that they don't take the
he
job.
didn't even say usurper.
Okay, who's the starter?
If there was a usurper,
Yeah.
If there was one, because again, I think the starter to go into the season, Javonte Williams, now, he's not good, so I don't know how long he can hold on to that job.
If there's a usurper,
But if there was a usurper, the guy I'm choosing
Yeah.
It's totally out of left field. Everybody
I know. I wanted to say before you. Who is it?
It's going to be Phil Maffa.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we got that on tape.
Because here's the thing. And I've
Not
been
rolling.
paying attention to all the leaves, the tea leaves. And I've actually been listening to you talk about it a lot, specifically Jaden Blue. And if people don't know,
He's
Abby
trash.
is a University of Texas alum. He follows that team closely.
He does.
So he's been following Jaden Blue probably ever since he's been on the team.
Let me not say he's trash. I'm just saying he's.
But every time he talks about this guy, he forcibly
No.
where you see veins coming out of his neck talking about how much Blue sucks.
No, I don't
And
come
how
on
bad
now,
he
come
is,
on now,
right?
come on now.
And how
He's not bad.
He's shocked that Blue is even in the NFL, that he was even drafted.
Wow, come
And he probably needs to switch positions because he ain't a running back.
No, my position is that he is a track star that can play football.
That's why
He's a
I
track
see
star that
him-
can be a football
Okay.
player.
That's why I can see him playing that Pollard role.
No.
No,
He is
said he's
nowhere
not a
near
running back.
Pollard. He is nowhere near Pollard.
He said he's not a
Man, I'm
running
telling
back.
He is nowhere near
So when I
Pollard.
hear
Come
Abby
on,
say
man.
that,
He can
I'm
play
He
like,
is
okay.
nowhere
Pollard
near
role,
Pollard.
man.
When it comes to actually playing running back, vision, breaking tackles, he's not there. If there's a wide open hole, he can run
his
fast through
skill
it.
set is he's fast.
And
That's
people,
his skill.
And people also view him as this guy who can catch a lot of passes. You can be using he's really not even that. Yes, he can run a real route and catch the ball, but he's not somebody who's out there running routes.
So,
who's patient.
again-
Well, I don't want my running back necessarily being like flexing out to the slot.
But
I mean,
listen,
I want to be
but
able
listen.
to catch wheel
Listen,
routes.
if
Screens.
with Abby, being so, set on that type of
Right.
view on him,
He is the
I looked at
UT
it as,
guy.
okay, so Blue can't be the guy. In my opinion, the way Abby talks, Blue cannot be the guy, right? So I look at who can be the guy. I feel like Miles is done. Miles might have a little bit more gas in him. But really, I look at Phil Maffa and his skill set,
I don't see
his
it.
profile. He's a bigger back. He's the biggest back they have right now. He has juice. He played very well for Clemson in the past. And he drafted him. We know this was a deep
look at
draft.
the tape, man.
We know there's
He's
Go
too
look at
big
the
to
tape.
me.
we know there's players that were drafted in the 7th round that we still feel like can contribute this year because of how deep the draft was. And he was drafted in the 7th, if not, I think 7th round, maybe 6th round, whatever. But I feel like he has the opportunity. It's a wide open depth
is,
chart
yeah.
for me. So if you ask for a usurper, that's the guy. In my
the guy.
opinion,
Yeah.
and he's somebody you can get free. He's probably not even being drafted.
I'm just glad we got
In
it on wax
Dynasty-
now. Yeah.
In Dynasty, you can pick him up easily, I'm sure, because he's right there waiting on you. And I mean, he's gonna get the chance. Every time they talked about the backs, from what I've seen or read, they always bring his name up. Like he's not a forgotten guy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they got other running backs on the roster, but they always bring his name up. So that's just really why I want to bring that up.
I don't know. I'm not rolling.
I know.
I watched him. I just think he's pause in advance. He's too big, and
would
I
you
like
repeat
my
it, though?
running backs.
Okay.
I like my running backs to be a bit more nimble.
But remember, it doesn't matter whatsoever what you think. It's about
Gotcha.
what the coaches or the team thinks. And if they like him
And what they need.
if they like him and he's useful for them, he has a role. And again, he's free right now.
Yeah.
So let's move on to quarterbacks for a second, because obviously everyone wants that Konami code quarterback who can run and give you 4,000 yards in a season. And so when we look at the top quarterbacks, with the exception of Joe Burrow, who is shockingly high to me for a running back who doesn't run, for a quarterback who doesn't run, have we begun to overvalue running quarterbacks?
No.
Because
No.
so you don't think so?
No.
And before we even get there, let's kind of define what a running quarterback is. Like, what is a
What I was going to say, when you said Konami quarterback, you just said also 4,000. I'm assuming you're talking about passing.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't think that's the definition of Konami quarterback, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way we've used Konami quarterback, and that's why I was actually going to say, yes, we have overvalued them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way we've, in the past, spoken about Konami quarterbacks is a quarterback that runs. That's simple. That's the simple baseline in it.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with that is why I do think it's overvalued now is because we're looking for these running quarterbacks, we've kind of ignored or not cared so much about how well they are as a passer. And I think you're starting to see quarterbacks now who are great runners, but their passing struggles so much or is so bad that we can't even really value them the way we used to in the past. Specifically, you're looking at Kyler Murray.
He doesn't run as much.
but he's a canonical quarterback. He's a runner. Now, if we're talking about actual quarterbacks that literally are designed to run,
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
you know, well, I mean,
Yeah, I feel like
there's very few of those these days.
exactly, and that's why those guys are like, to me, priced appropriately. They just create such a floor and they create such an advantage over the field. Even Baker Mayfield, if you really look at like Baker Mayfield's stats, people don't realize how much he ran.
You call him a canonical quarterback?
Last year he technically was. I mean,
So, like, that's
what
the point that I wanted to make.
Like that's an important thing. Like
I don't.
yeah.
So
You know what?
But that's
I
also
don't call Baker a running quarterback.
that's also kind of an outlier type year though too as well.
I use
That's what I say. So
500
the
yards
definition is
as my
variable.
threshold.
Say it again.
I use 500 yards as my threshold.
As far as rushing,
As far as
that's
rushing.
arbitrary.
what did Kyler have
If you-
last year?
Kyler, well, it's not 500 yards. So, like,
So you don't see Kyler as a canonical quarterback?
No, he doesn't run as much. Ever since his injury, he does not run as much. That's why, and he's not really a threat in the red zone anyway.
Well, I think in the past that was the biggest reason people value Kyler was because
Yeah.
of his running.
And when he
Like,
was,
they
like, he offered a
they
safe
viewed
floor.
him as a canonical quarterback. If you're saying he's no longer a canonical quarterback, that changes the
yeah,
discussion
and that's
a
why
little bit.
I stopped drafting him last year. I'm like, this guy's not going to run as much as he used to. He got hurt. He's small.
What about
running back.
Dak?
He's
You see
older.
him as a canonical
no, he's
quarterback?
no.
No,
Dak and
definitely not.
Dak is another. Dak is basically Kyler. Only it happened to Dak a lot earlier. Once these guys get injured and lose their athleticism, like they don't run as much.
So
Now,
you
I
only
don't-
see 4 canonical quarterbacks. Then.
no. There's Lamar Jackson. There's Josh
Lamar
Allen.
Jaden
Jaden Daniels, and there's Hurts. Those are the main. But then there's others that could potentially fall into that. You can have Justin Fields. Because when Justin Fields starts games, he averages like he's going to give you a pretty decent floor. He may have some real duds in there, but he's going to give you a pretty decent floor and give you some of the upside. Bo Nix was a canonical code quarterback to me
He's
last
getting
year.
there. He's
and
getting
that was one. That's why I was like, ended up adding a lot of Bo Nix and starting a lot of Bo Nix and kept talking him up last year or towards the back end of last year. And you would notice Baker.
So
Baker
those guys right there that you
Yeah.
mentioned, would you value them over Mahomes and Burrow?
Absolutely. Well, so Burrow to me was different. So last year, my 2 highest owned quarterbacks were Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow, and they were both going super late.
Right.
Like 2 highest owned easily. And one was a situation where, again, I was just like, this guy's going to run. He has the same offensive coordinator that had Kyler Murray, who ran tons of RPOs and design run packages with a much smaller quarterback. And to me, Jaden Daniels was a little bit more athletic from a speed standpoint. So, like, to me, I was just like, he's going to run. His floor is built in. I was like, this is like the easiest.
But we're not talking about Jet. We're talking about
So then, yeah, and then when it got to Joe Burrow, in that situation, I was like, they're not. This is not going through the run game, and their defense to me was very subpar. So I felt like pretty much all their offense was going to go through the pass game. So yeah, in a situation where like all of their offense is like likely going to go through their passing game, I feel like that's a potential where you can like attack because if it's going to go if the offense is going to go strictly through the quarterback, that means that quarterback usually is pretty damn good.
Okay.
And they usually have pretty damn good receiving option too as well.
Okay.
You know.
But going back, so you value Bo Nix and who's the other quarterback you said is Konami now?
So now it's different though. Now it's different. The quarterback landscape now, there are tons of guys who could potentially fall into that Konami code. Guys that I'm not quite sure and they're going later, but when I talk about like other different options or guys that can like where the offense can go through the passing game, or this is another caveat, guys who are in offenses that are super efficient. It's a fine balance between like, can I get this guy super late and like, couple him
So
with
it sounds then that it's still kind of ambiguous with
you can draft a
the
quarterback anywhere.
non-top 4 Konami quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Like
I think
you
those
still see it as the top 4 Konami and everybody else, even if you would consider them maybe Konami, you don't feel like it makes their value much more than everybody else in that range.
I think everybody's appropriately priced right now.
Okay.
I feel like you can win in any which way you want. So if one of these 4 or 5 Konami code quarterbacks falls, that's when I'll get my share.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Of course.
Otherwise, like, I just prefer to wait because when I can get, like, I think probably my highest owned quarterback right now is Purdy. Brock Purdy. And that's because I feel like he's in a very, very efficient offense. And he's proven that when he plays, he can produce at quite a high level. And I just couple that with other quarterbacks.
He's on the edge too, because like
And he runs a little bit.
I think it's important to understand that some of these quarterbacks, like, what is a running quarterback? What is a quarterback that has that Konami code? I use the threshold of 500 yards.
Yeah.
Kyler barely surpassed 500 yards. The only other quarterbacks who did that was Lamar Jackson, 852 yards. Josh Allen, 531. Jayden Daniels 865, 864, and then Jalen Hurts at 630. Again, Kyler Murray is there as well. But I think maybe the value might be those quarterbacks who are on the younger side, like a Bo Nix, who could potentially add another 100 to 200 yards to maybe become that Konami code. So that's why I use that 500-yard mark, because otherwise, I mean,
are we saying, are y'all basically trying to tell me y'all think there's a chance Bo Nix will be valued the same way we see those top 4 guys in the future?
Yeah.
Because I don't see that.
So the issue with Bo Nix is that I think a lot of his runs to me were more scrambles, and he did a very good job of scrambling, and were less design runs. Okay. That's why I'm not like necessarily putting Bo Nix there, because if he just gets better at running the offense and they've added more weapons and he's more of a distributor, now you lose that. Yeah. And then like I feel like anyway.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then you won't be able to call him economic quarterback.
So I have 0 Bo Nix right now.
Okay.
Oh no,
yeah,
see,
because
I disagree.
Because
Bo Nix last season, and again I was high on Bo Nix, so maybe this is me defending that pick. But
he was, by the way, he really was.
Yeah. But Bo Nix ran for 383 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, 3,400 passing yards, and this was in his rookie season. I feel like with Sean Payton, he can become a little more efficient. In addition to that, I think the thing that actually really killed him are those 12 interceptions. I think he's going to get better.
So you consider him a economic quarterback?
I do.
Do me a favor. Pull up his game log, because I'm pretty sure that like towards the, later half of the season, he stopped running as much.
Okay,
and that could be a situation where he was a rookie and he was running a lot early on because he was still trying to get a grasp of the offense. And then once he got more comfortable, he started leaning more on his passing. He also has a really good defense behind him too as well.
But I don't want to use Bo Nix as the example here. Like when we're even talking about this, I'm not looking at Bo Nix as far as trying to figure
Drake
this out.
May would maybe.
I'm more looking at, again, your Kylers and your Fields. Those are the people because in my mind, if they didn't have their running ability, they wouldn't have any value at all, in my mind.
Right.
Both of those quarterbacks. Both of those.
Fields and who?
Kyler and Fields.
So I feel like, for me, Fields is there, Kyler's not.
People still look at him, in my opinion, as Konami code quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now, if they're viewed as because back when we first started talking about Konami code quarterback, those were the rage. You want those at the very top of the.
Because there weren't many of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, if we still consider, and again, I consider them guys Konami code. If we still consider those Konami code quarterback, I don't think they're going high anymore, right?
I don't see Justin Fields.
Justin Fields is definitely Konami code.
I don't see.
Justin Fields may be one of the better.
Konami code?
No,
you're crazy.
I definitely think
because I don't think he gives you enough in a passing game to be.
He can give you enough in a passing game, but even when he hasn't, he's still been able to give you Konami code numbers.
And I don't think we used to call Konami code. I don't think Konami code used to be something that had to do anything with the passing. I think it was strictly just a running quarterback.
I thought it was a cheat code because it could be both. Like he gave you passing and running ability, not just
Konami code. You putting in a cheat code.
It's the cheat code.
The running was the cheat code, really, which made Anthony Richardson technically a Konami code quarterback. He was, and his passing was horrible. Yeah. And
I never saw him as
people were drafting him high in the past because he was a Konami code quarterback.
See, I think Drake May and Bo Nix are 2 budding Konami code. Like I think their value should be
on
higher.
Bo Nix.
Do you see?
I could see 2. These are 2 sneaky potential Konami codes that can come out. Drake May, I think everybody's kind of aware of, but 2 other ones. Caleb Williams, if they decide to use his legs more. Yep. Okay. I don't know how they, planning on running out that offense, but that's one because he can move. He can move. So you may get there with
79 yards rushing, by the way. So he's there on the cusp.
Because he scrambles, but then if you add in a little bit more design runs, he may be able to get there. And then the other one is J.J. McCarthy. It just depends on how much they use.
That was my guy. That's who I was gonna say.
And that's my second highest song. That's J.J. McCarthy.
I think people were sleeping on him.
I view J.J. McCarthy the same way I view Bo Nix last year.
How?
Because I'm gonna give you an example. He's in an offensive system that it doesn't matter what quarterback you put. Name any quarterback. A third string quarterback, Nick Mullins, and these guys are still putting up 300+ passing yards, double-digit TDs. Whoever has been his quarterback in his system has produced. Remember what everybody thought last year about Sam Darnold? Just go back to your thought. Like, what have we been thinking about? Even what you think about Sam
Darnold parlayed that into a
yeah. So like whoever ends up in that system, like, and then J.J. McCarthy has a little bit of legs to him too as well. So
Listen, I just
He goes
can't
so
get
late.
over. I just can't get over that the last time I saw him play meaningful football, his team did not want him
did not
to throw
need him.
passes.
Did not need him. to
No,
throw
they did
passes.
not want him. Like they were in some games where like they were in dogfights and they did not want him to throw the football.
We'll see. He goes late. He goes late enough.
I'm talking to a guy who drafted 3 straight tight ends in a league, man. Why am I arguing?
Hey,
With a
look,
guy who
look, my
drafted
track record, my track record with quarterbacks, like you can knock me on a lot of things.
That's the
My
two-time
track record
champ.
with quarterbacks every single year, like I hit on the guys. I beat home Jaden Daniels. I beat home Jaden Daniels and I beat home Joe Burrow. And I kept saying, I was like, I do not understand why these guys are going that late.
Why are you stepping on my segue? I was
My
trying
fault.
to segue.
My fault.
To,
I got to take it a little personal there. My bad.
All right, so you went a little viral because you drafted a unique build that I didn't see coming. And I didn't know that it was your board when I called it stupid, by the way. I did call it stupid. I was like, who's this stupid person who drafted this? Where he's like, hey, that's mine. That's mine. But it went a little viral. I've been posting this board throughout this pod. So so people have been seeing it, been kind of teasing it here. Let's go back to it a bit. You drafted 3 straight tight ends. And at first I called this stupid.
Yeah.
But then we started talking about it. And then I was like, well, damn, like, actually, when you think about in a tight end premium, like I can kind of get it, but I don't have the courage to do it. So I want you to defend this board because this is a different type of build that most people won't actually do.
So one, I had like this like crazy tight end build last year that actually had Kelsey who disappointed, had Mark Andrews who disappointed, but it had Trey McBride, I think. It was a Trey McBride and George Kittle, I think. Some combination of that. And that was like a super high scoring team. It was like top 75 overall point scoring, even with those. So like having multiple tight end, I think, because we play in so many different formats where tight end is just like not as valued and you can wait and you play on Underdog or you play on CBS, you play on Yahoo, you play in other dynasty formats that are just PPR or even standard leagues. So when you like are playing in a format where it is tight end premium, I think sometimes it's hard to like really conceptualize. It's crazy because like you have a group that are like, okay, I got to get me an elite tight end, and you'll have a group that are just like, will kind of wait, but as soon as that tight end runs, they like will jump. So eventually like they're jumping the board and like grabbing tight ends like a round or two earlier than that tight end would have normally gone because they want to make sure that in the tight end premium they have a player. So this draft was on Memorial Day. And as I told you guys, I love drafting on holidays because that's when you get like a lot of influx of people. And I'm not necessarily saying that influx of people or people don't know how to draft, but it just changes the draft board a lot. You just see different things happen, crazy things happen. So like whenever I hop in drafts, like multiple drafts, is usually on a holiday. So Bowers going into mid first is not like some crazy thing. I think this is a little bit after his ADP. What was unusual was Trey McBride falling in the second. And so I don't get too much or too enamored with like being unique, but I felt like, okay, this could be a unique build. But honestly, what drove me to do that was like potentially drafting 2 guys who can give me 300 points. Like in the first round, that's my goal, is to draft a guy who can give me 300 points.
Yeah.
Like that's my number one goal. Which one of these guys can give me 300 points? Okay. And so Bowers was obviously very close last year, rookie, better quarterback potentially, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe he can get me to 300 points. Trey McBride was also right there. You talk about like regression candidates, like he had a ton of end zone targets that just did not connect.
Actually, Bowers hit 301. So.
Yeah, so the idea that like it doesn't matter like that this was a tight end, like 2 tight ends that I drafted right away. These were just 2 guys who I felt like can give me 300 points.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I got, Trey McBride at value. What made it, I guess, kind of interesting was getting Kittle, on the go around. And as you guys know, I am very high on Kittle. I don't think, when people like look at what players did last year, it's almost always based on total points. What I don't think people understood or realized is that like Kittle missed a couple games last year, also got knocked out early in a couple games. But if you just sort points per game, he was actually the tight end 1 points per game. And this is an offense that lost Debo, We don't know what the status of Ayuk is going to be or when he's going to be 100%. And so when I look at the receiving weapons on that team, and I think to myself, okay, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, how am I prioritizing this? I'm thinking I'm going to prioritize Kittle. So like, I view him as someone who can give me 300 points. So like this idea of starting off 3 tight end was not, oh, let me do something unique. It was just like I thought I saw 3 guys who can give me 300 points, and I just wanted to draft them. And then after that, it was really trying to like fill in the holes, but like, do so in a way where like this team has the potential to win it all.
Yeah.
And that's, anytime we're drafting any of these teams, like that's our goal, is to like win it all. So I think I got fortunate getting a couple of guys at ADP. I took some shots on a couple of guys. And then ultimately I feel like I'm very happy with how this build turned out,
Dio, like, take a look at the board if you can. I mean, like, what do you think about the build? I actually kind of like it. The more that I looked at it,
about to rip this.
like the more that I looked at it, I actually kind of liked it. Like I was like, all right, so you got Terry McLaurin, so but you do have a starting receiver that can command some targets.
I'm not huge on Terry McLaurin, but that's value.
And if Travis Hunter could be, if he can live up to his draft pick, that's a hell of a pick to be able to have
polarizing.
Terry McLaurin and Travis Hunter as your 2 receivers. You're obviously going to use the 2 tight ends as your flex plays.
Yeah. And I got Chris Olave too. I'm very high on Olave. So
you got Pollard, who is a starting running back. So you were still able to get a guy who you were just high on, as we talked about with running backs. I think that second running back slot is where you really got to fit in, because I don't know if Jordan Mason is still
no.
It's and then Tootin.
I tried to get the Jags backfield, and I think that's something that is not that hard to do in drafts right now. Like I'm kind of leaning with Deo in the idea that this is likely going to be Travis Etienne at least having the 1A role. I don't know who that 1B is going to be, but I feel like if I can get 2 of these guys, and I need to probably start like getting comfortable with the idea of even drafting a Tanks Bigsby, because for me it's like I want to take a stand and this is it. But I need to get comfortable with the idea that like maybe it's not Tootin, maybe it is still Etienne and Bigsby, or maybe it's not Etienne, maybe it's Bigsby and Tootin. So, but I feel like by getting 2 of those guys and getting them relatively late, I just want to have some ownership of the Jags backfield. I don't know how well this offensive line is going to be. I don't know if he can do the same things. Liam Coleman can do the same things he did in Tampa. Maybe they just don't have the personnel there just yet. But I do know that he is very creative. And if anybody can kind of get a running game going with this offensive line, and the biggest thing to me, this is the biggest thing to me, and this is why I'm kind of leaning Travis Etienne. He uses his running back so creatively and so often in the passing game. And receptions are so massive when it comes to value it with running backs and PPR. And to me, Travis Etienne is really by far the best pass-catching running back on that team. I think nobody really talks about that with Bashil Tootin, as far as like, what he can do in a passing game. I never saw anything, when it came to film or when it just, whatever I read, that where he was just a guy that was just, really good in the passing. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but I feel like Etienne has like really been very, very excellent in that role. So, overall, like I feel like, I was able to sort of kind of, create a build here where potentially, I keep talking because I don't want to hear him like knock. I don't want to hear him knock down my team.
I'm not gonna knock him down.
I'm defending the hell out of this.
I mean, it's different. It's definitely something I probably wouldn't do myself. But I mean, it's not bad. I feel like every time you start doing these tight ends early, it just never works out. And we've talked about it in years past. I feel like the best teams are always the teams that take the tight end late. They just happen to hit on this late tight end, which allows the rest of the team to be so strong, and then they just got this gem with technically the most valuable position in this format later in the draft. It just adds to that powerful team, and it just takes them all the way. Last year it was Bowers, and to some extent Kittle.
Who was that this year?
Kittle was,
I mean, that's a whole other discussion if you want to have that discussion.
We can say that for another day.
Yeah, we can say that for another day because that'll be a good discussion, actually.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
But I feel like,
at some point it has to be Kincaid. If Buffalo is going to take that next step forward,
Wide tangent if we go down that route.
I'm just saying like, it has to be Kincaid at some point if Buffalo is going to take that next step. But go ahead.
Maybe. But you know, and this is not the first year. I don't think we've ever seen a team go 3 tight ends in a row. We've seen it before.
This early though, like
I've seen it.
Yeah,
we've
that's
seen
what
it.
happened.
You know,
The issue is like they all got a hit.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for taking my thunder. Yeah. That's the first issue. They all have to hit. And I feel like every time we see it, when we first see it, it looks great. Because the reason those guys are even ranked that high is because everybody assumes they're going to have a great season.
Yeah.
So when you first look at this, I mean, he took the first 3 tight ends in the draft. It looks great technically if they all hit.
Yeah.
But they usually just don't hit. Now, of course, that's always the case in these, large tournaments. You want a team that's going to hit, and at one time it does hit. You get that lightning in the bottle, then great, But this isn't bad. Now I'll say this. Okay, 3 things. One reason I don't like it. 2 reasons I like it. The one reason I don't like, and I've already alluded to it, is just
I already feel like I'm winning.
The build. It makes you weak in so many other positions.
Yeah.
Right. That's really the biggest problem.
Yeah.
You have every other team give me a 3-round head start in all the other high end positions, and we know with these high end positions, like a top end wide receiver is way better than like a wide receiver 3 type.
But
Doesn't matter though.
it doesn't matter
Points are
because
points.
your flex. Yeah, like
Can I finish saying my?
go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so you're so weak at these other positions, so you have to fill those positions. So you're always going to be trying to fill those positions, and you're not going to have consistency or stability or high-end production. You're going to have like maybe an okay floor, but not a very high ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's the one reason I don't like it. The 2 reasons I like it. Number 1, when you do a build like this, it forces all the other teams tight end to be weaker. Because nobody else is able to have a high-end tight end. The next best team that has a tight end has at best tight end 4 ranked at best.
Yeah.
And that's only if they decide to take tight end next. You're still going to have teams that don't decide to take tight end until later. There's going to be a team that probably their top tight end is tight end 15 ranked. Because they have to have a tight end, but they waited so late. Yeah. So it kind of puts a strain on everybody else. Kind of chokes them out a little bit.
Yeah.
The number.
We don't care about that though, right?
I do. Yeah, let that be known. Don't think just because I'm like I drafted 2 tight ends that I won't take a 3rd or a 4th. People like to pigeonhole you like when you're in the corners.
The second reason I like it is because again, if they all hit, then he has such a larger advantage over the rest of the league because it's easier to find receivers and running backs than it is to find a tight end, right? So he's in the same race as everybody else when it comes to waivers, trying to find the top end
especially running
back waiver, the top end receiver waiver. There's just not a lot of top end tight end waivers to pick up. So his journey throughout the season in building his team, because first of all, you should always be building your team throughout the year. You shouldn't just draft your team and just expect that team to be the team that you finish with in the season. But in his journey throughout the year of building that team, it's easier for him to focus on those positions because his tight is already set. One more thing that I don't like about it, so I guess it's 2 for 2, is right now, if he has 3 good receivers or 3 good running backs, he always has to put one of them on the bench, like always, because his flex are always going to be filled by that tight end. And if they're not always filled by that tight end, then there's a problem in my opinion.
That just means I have depth.
Embarrassment at risk.
Because like I have 2 wide receivers and I can
have depth.
And week to week I can decide which one is best to play.
Yeah, you will have depth, but sometimes what is it called? An abundance of riches can sometimes be a curse, because then you're kind of analysis by paralysis, whatever the term is, where you're trying to figure out who to put, and you're like going back and forth and waffling, and you end up putting the wrong. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
But that's the only issue. But I have no problem with it. You know me, I don't truly critique drafts. Yeah. Because again, like I was stating just a moment ago, it's just the beginning of the journey. You still have to build your team throughout the season. And number 2, we don't know how it's gonna play out.
I don't know. This won the championship. This is
okay.
Y'all can stop drafting. Let the donation cease. We good.
The donation cease.
Now I will say this. I do think Kittle might not hit the way he hit last year. Okay. I think Hill could take a step back. McBride, I think, will be okay. Matter of fact, McBride, I think, can maybe take a step forward. Bowers, I like him. I think he's ranked too high right now. Okay. And that's a Raiders discussion because I think last year it was just Bowers. Yeah, Myers was mixed in a little bit, but it was just Bowers. It was just the Bowers show.
Yeah.
This year, I think it's the Bowers / Genty / Geno / Myers / it's a different show. Not to mention it's a different offensive coordinator. Yeah. So we're not really sure exactly how he'll use it. And you're taking, tight end, top 7. Yeah. But it's not a bad draft.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings me to our last topic of the night. Let's talk about major regression candidates, right? So we all look at these numbers and we look at the top players, especially in rounds 1 and 2, and they are players who hit last season, who had massive seasons, massive stats from last season, with the exception of maybe like Christian McCaffrey. But for the most part, when you take out the rookies and when you take out, and I say rookies as if Ashton Genty is not the only rookie, but when you take out a handful of people, most of the players in the first 2 rounds are people who had great seasons last year. Who do you expect to have that major regression? Just kind of looking at like the people who are drafting in rounds 1 and 2. Who do you guys expect or anticipate?
Just rounds 1 and 2?
Just rounds 1 and 2 because those are like the money rounds.
Well,
right? Like those are people who had massive seasons.
Why he's trying to figure out my 2 guys are the top guys.
All right.
Barkley and Chase.
Okay.
And it's a really superficial reason for it.
Because they're there. Right?
No, because
you got stats for it.
We talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Every year we draft, the consensus 101, that season plays out, and they don't finish as the 1. Yeah. Like, for whatever reason, whether it's injuries, lack of production, whatever. Yeah. It just never happens, right? Yeah. And I don't think it's happened ever since maybe AB. Mm-hmm. When AB was the first overall pick.
AB and Michael Thomas were like last few. They were like.
I don't even think Michael Thomas was 101 2 years in a row. I think maybe had 1 year. Yeah. And then he fell off, you know? So it's like if I go by that pattern, and then I guess this specific comment I'm speaking of is regarding Chase. Mm-hmm. If I go by that pattern, Chase had Triple Crown last year, one of the greatest seasons ever as a receiver. Yeah. A perfect scenario, horrible defense, which I'm pretty sure defense is still horrible now. Yeah. They were losing out of games, so they had to keep throwing the ball. Yeah. He had great efficiency. He was going crazy. Yeah. Burrow, played out of his mind. I think he was hurt maybe a couple games as far as Chase, but other than that, T. Higgins was kind of got out the gate slow a little bit. So all that stuff worked out. Great season. Whoever had him was very happy. Yeah. Now this year he's 1-on-1. I feel like, I'm not saying he's going to bust, but I don't think he's going to bring back that 101 value, And even if he has a down season, I still think he'll be a first-round pick next year.
But that's the question, though, is like, how often are you getting the 101? So if you don't get the 101 often, you just like, I don't care. I'm not getting any Chase this year. Are you in that camp? Like, if I get the 101, knowing that like this is something that like I have a 1 in 12 chance of getting,
and you're a mass drafter. Yeah.
You just fading Chase altogether? You're never going to take Chase?
I'm just fading Chase.
Okay.
I'm fading. And it's stupid.
It's
stupid as hell. I'm going to do it. Because I'm going to get mad at myself. Because I'm going every year.
We say that every year with the running backs. Like every year. Like, remember when CMC was 101? I was like, I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm not doing it. Because like, when you get that many carries in that amount of time, and then usually those guys end up in like the playoffs too as well. Yeah. Like I just don't like why. Like I'm not gonna, and they were super efficient. Like I'm not doing it.
That reason you just said right there.
You're not gonna see another one. You're not gonna see another one of those Saquon Barkley run. I mean, how magical was that season?
And that's this dude,
like,
it was.
He hurdled someone and then. Come on.
That's the reason why Saquon was my other guy.
Yeah.
Because again, he had a crazy amount of touches last year. Yeah. He played all the way through the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't have his typical off season to get his body right, rested up, and train for the off season or whatever. It's just another situation. It's just another situation where it's like, I mean, we've had Saquon in the year for 5 years. Of course, this was the first year with the Eagles, but like he's always been a mid to back end first round pick. Yeah. Now he's a first running back pick.
I'm telling you, man, that 1-2 turn is just like has put out so many league winners the last few years. Mm-hmm. Like that 1-2 turn puts out so many league winners the last few. That's where Barkley was going. Remember Chase was going there because of the whole year. C-Day was going there. Like that 1-2 turn is like, we'll see if it happens a year,
So just to finish my thought, those are 2 guys I say are going to regress. Yeah. Now the amount of regression, I'm not, putting my taking a stand on that
Yeah.
because they could probably end up, Chase could probably be wide receiver 2. It would still be a great season. But that's still in my mind is a regression because he's still not give you that same value back. And that question you have for me as far as if I had the one-on-one, would I take Chase? I got to think about that long and hard.
Man, take Chase.
But
I think that.
I'm probably not going to do it, man. I'm probably not going to. It's almost like superstitious now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the one-on-one, I know it never hits. Now, and here's the thing. Every year we go into the draft season, I have the same thought. The one-on-one never repeats. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take the one just because of that
just
thought
because
process.
I need to get a
Exactly.
I need to get a share.
Chase, I think, is probably not going to be like my number 1 overall ranked wide receiver.
Really?
But if I have the 101, I'm taking Chase.
I feel that.
Yeah.
But I understand the logic. I understand.
Who's your
so
number
who's your
one?
one-on-one?
It's not a ranking show. We'll keep that to the ranking show. But yeah, he's not my number 1 ranked wide receiver right now.
Okay.
But I'm still taking the 101 just because of
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, so my regression candidate. So I'm gonna go the opposite end of the regression spectrum with this one. One of my regression candidates, C-Mac. Okay.
In a positive direction, right?
In a positive direction, exactly. So I feel like, we just forgot,
Yeah.
And he's one of those dudes. He takes, good care of his body. Like sometimes you can't predict injuries, and I feel like sometimes we just peg these guys as injury prone, and that's a tough thing to discuss because all injuries are different. And just saying somebody's injury prone and they have a broken bone and they tear a ligament or have a concussion, like all these things are just very different things. And so like there's a lot more nuance than just saying somebody's injury prone. But if he gets through a full season, remember, I don't expect any running back, we say this every year, I never expect any running back to get through an entire full season. If they do, like last year was kind of crazy. How many like high-end starters like that did not get injured. Like that was that was really an anomaly.
Running back is back in play, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that was really an anomaly. So like I don't expect any running back, but like all I care about is those points per game. And so like I feel like this year coming into the year, especially again with the state of that team, I feel like CMC is just going to be such a strong focus of this team in how they use him. I think we forget like how well he's used in the receiving game. I forget how well he meshes and how well he works with that, run blocking scheme. So for me, like I feel like he has the potential to be like number 1 overall points per game.
But let's not. I mean, he did come back last season and play a few games, and he didn't look.
But he wasn't healthy.
He wasn't healthy.
He wasn't healthy. Like he was forcing himself back. Like he went to go get PRP injections. Like he was forcing his way back. Remember, it was like was really an Achilles.
He waited
injury.
like 10 weeks.
It was really an Achilles. Those Achilles injuries take a long time to heal. And if you're constantly trying to work your way back, you're not really giving yourself the enough time to allow it to heal.
I just think, he's a positive regression candidate, but he's also somebody that can be a super dud.
Oh yeah,
it might not even be strictly due to injury. It might just be his talent level is just sapped
at some point.
But that's why he goes where he goes.
I'm not saying he's done.
Yeah.
It just might be sapped where he's just not giving you what he used to be.
And that's where he goes where he goes. But I think that's one of my candidates. And then I got to get out of the top 2 rounds for this. But
let me ask you a question.
I feel
real
like
quick,
go ahead
before we go on your next guy. C-Mac drafter is you, obviously. You're a C-Mac drafter.
I don't get a lot of C-Mac. Remember, I keep making
like my kids.
Well,
yes or no? Are you drafting C-Mac?
Yeah.
Thank you. But that's all I need. That's all I need.
Yeah. I'm definitely drafting C-Mac. But like
now, my question, I don't need any kind of explanation.
I'm not giving.
My question is,
all right.
are you adding Isaac Guerrero to those teams? Are you adding Jordan James to those teams, or are you just going naked C-Mac? Or does
kind of half and half, or if it works out, it works out.
Half and half what?
Yeah. Like
you're not chasing.
If it works out, I'm not chasing Isaac Guerrero. Usually,
so it's Isaac Guerrero. If it was a guy, it's Isaac Guerrero.
If it was a guy, it's Isaac Guerrero. And I'm at about a 75% confidence level with that. Him being the.
But are you targeting Guerrero to make sure you have him with?
I have it in the back of my mind, but I'm not like. I'm not reaching ADP.
You're not reaching
wise.
for him.
No. I'll take him basically at ADP if he falls.
ADP?
Yeah. But I definitely do not mind handcuffing.
Well, if you're taking at ADP, you're just taking just to draft.
Exactly.
But I'm talking more as a C-Mac owner. Because if you're a C-Mac owner and you're intentional about that, you then have to reach at least a round.
Yeah.
Or at least it has to be a round, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to wait for him to come back, somebody obviously risk taking, which means you're just okay with not getting him. I'm more asking, are you somebody that takes C-Mac and saying, okay, I have to ensure this pick?
No, I'm not. And to get back to my other point again, a little bit of a tangent, but just remember, 2 years ago, you could have had 100% CeeDee Lamb. Last year, you could have had 100% Saquon Barkley and probably close to 75 to 80% Jamar Chase. You could have had them both. So if it repeats,
Could you?
Jamar's going top 4, top 5.
no. Well, I guess because of all the contract situations, he was going at the back end of the first round.
Nah, he was still going like top 6,
No,
even with the contract stuff.
He was towards the back end of the year. Maybe it was a little bit later.
Yeah, because I
but
remember,
you could definitely
when we did our draft. Are we doing a listener draft this year?
We should.
I'm not.
Remember
Y'all can't.
our listener draft? Chris was talking about taking Chase, and he waited. He got him like at 6, or he was looking at him at 106.
Okay.
But
well, you could have got 100% Barkley though.
No, but you just made a interesting point. Are you not saying that maybe we should look at who's ADP at 110 to 201 and just take that guy because that's the league winner?
Yeah, you can.
Is that what we should do? Because I'm a scientist, right? Like, I'm looking at historical data, right? 101 doesn't hit, so I'm fading that.
Doesn't hit.
But the 110 to 201, somebody there ends up being the league winner.
But that was getting to my point about am I drafting? Am I just like Lock Button and C-Mac? I'm not, because I don't know who that guy is. There's like a handful of guys.
Who are the candidates?
Yeah. Who are the candidates?
Who are the candidates?
Puka Nacua.
110 to 205. Who is the candidate that'll be 101 next year?
Puka Nacua. Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is a strong candidate.
101 next year?
He could be 101 next year because he could be 101
Respect.
next year. C-Mac will not be 101 next year because of his age, regardless.
Yeah.
Genty potentially. I think
Where's
it's
Genty?
unlikely.
Ain't Genty going like top 8, top 7, top 8?
Yeah. Well, no, he's kind of like in that little. He's kind of like in that.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know that Trey McBride will ever get there because
Hell
of
no.
how he's used.
Ain't
He's
no
more
tight end.
volume.
I don't see a tight end ever
No.
being 101 again.
Yeah, Bowers doesn't go down there, but if Bowers just gets used in a way where he's like the clear alpha number one and he's scores double-digit touchdowns, I can see him being the number 101 because he goes top 3, top 4 right now. So if he ends up with double-digit touchdowns and is utilized as a number one, that's just such
But
a
the only way I see that playing out, and it goes back to what I was saying about the draft, to me that would mean Genty just busted that season.
No, it doesn't have to mean Genty busted that season.
That's just how I see it.
Think about this. Remember when Kelsey was so dominant across the field? That was still with a good running back. That was still with Kareem Hunt, and that was still with an elite wide receiver in Tyreek Hill.
When were we taking Kittle in the first round?
Not Kittle, Kelsey.
Kelsey.
Oh, Kelsey. Okay.
Kelsey was doing that with a Tyreek Hill
Yeah.
and with the Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
So he was doing it with an elite running back.
Kareem Hunt wasn't no Genty though.
He wasn't.
But you don't need to be
Genty.
Genty. But he's
Genty performed
Kareem
like
Hunt was
Kareem
still being
Hunt.
drafted in the top 2, top 3 rounds.
No, if Genty performs like Kareem Hunt did back then, Genty would have busted in a lot of people's minds. That would have been a down season.
But okay, well, what about Tyreek Hill though? What I'm saying is there's a scenario where you
on
can
Tyreek.
I get you on Tyreek.
Yeah. Genty could be the Tyreek Hill, from a volume production standpoint, and then whoever could be the Kareem Hunt from a volume production standpoint and fantasy points.
Maybe.
I'm just saying it's
I just think
possible.
the game is different.
Yeah.
For Kelsey was in a passing offense.
Yeah.
So and then Hill also has those explosive plays. I think Genty
Yeah.
being in a running offense.
Yeah. So the other one is Malik Neighbors. I do not think you can get there with Russell Wilson.
I like that option.
I don't think you can get there with Russell Wilson, but I think if Jackson Dart is the real deal, because again, we're talking about who could be the 101 next year.
Yeah.
Winston's likely not going to be there next year, so it would need to be some strong connection.
Dart. What are you talking? It's Dart.
I know. What I'm saying is you would need a strong connection at some point this year with Dart to where he just
You see it.
you see it. They got a connection. They lock on it. He uses them in the red zone.
Option.
That could
I like
be
that
another
pick.
one too as well. So all those guys, there's one other guy that I'm forgetting.
I'm not to look in your crotch area, but can I see the screen?
Who's your second regression guy?
So my actual regression guy is, I would say, James Cook. I just don't think he can be
in a
that
negative
efficient.
way?
Oh, yeah.
In a negative way. I just don't think he can be that efficient.
Yeah,
That's why I say Ray. I mean,
The other one
at
is,
some point, if this keeps going on, we're gonna have to have a discussion on him, right? Just like we
Yeah.
do it every year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, while we talking, why don't y'all help me out with this main pick right now? I'm on the clock. I'm at the 101. We went.
You gotta give
zero.
everybody a team. Start
We
from the
went.
beginning.
We went 0 RB in this build. This was kind of a tough build. I'm not gonna lie. This was a room where, based on my ranks, everybody just went well ahead. So started off with Jamar Chase at the 101. We just had the discussion. Took AJ Brown on the comeback, and then decided to take Rashee Rice. I'm just kind of taking a stand right now. I think I feel like I've seen enough.
Bro, you don't have to. You don't have
Yeah,
to.
I'm not gonna
comment.
go comment. I'm
Give
just
us a
saying.
rundown.
Okay. We're out of time. How much time we got now? Okay. So then, Jalen Hurts. We'll skip the discussion part. Came back and took Ted McMillan, and then my first running back I took Tony Pollard. Decided to go tight end there. I took Njoku, and then finished with Jordan Mason and Travis Etienne, and now I got 2 picks.
Let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Why'd you take Mason before Etienne, even though they were back-to-back picks? Because I'll be thinking about that.
Because I don't want to like affect the ADP.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So you want to keep you want to keep Etienne
Yeah, I
down?
didn't keep
got you,
Etienne down. Yeah, because this is going to take like one news. If you actually like go through some of the beat, and again, it's just beat reports. It's OTAs. It's like involuntary.
So,
but you're not hearing anything like amazing coming out of camp.
So my thought process.
Yeah.
If I was in this position,
Yeah.
Chris, you can chime in whenever you're ready.
Wait, here are the options though. Here are my options though.
Well, let me say before you even give me the options.
Okay.
This is what I look at. When I look at this draft, so obviously if you just superficially looking at it, you obviously will say this team's probably weaker running back. Maybe even weaker tight end. I need a tight end. A tight end or a running back. But I don't look at drafts that way. I look at it as, okay, now I'm like, who is available for me that still has great value or still has a high ceiling,
Absolutely.
regardless of position.
Absolutely.
Regardless, like I don't
Except
care.
for quarterback. Except for quarterback,
yeah, because you already got your quarterback fit.
Yeah.
But who is like somebody that's like, first of all, I'm still looking for starters because one thing I've noticed in drafts, they start taking backups before all the starters are finished. And the starters still have that high ceiling, in my opinion. So I start looking at starters that just slip, like Calvin really be slipping for whatever reason.
He fell to the middle of the 8th round today.
Yeah,
Crazy.
like what's going on?
Yeah.
So I look at that, and once I see that all the starters are gone, then I start looking at, okay, who has the upside or who can be a possible usurper, like I was saying earlier. Once all that's done, then I start saying, okay, what do I need? So right now I think you're in a position where you might be able to take one last starter out there, and we haven't looked at the options yet. But there might be 1 or 2 more starters out there we can choose from. And if not, then we start talking usurpers.
So based on ADP, this is who's available right now. Najee Harris.
Starter, in my opinion.
Cooper Kupp. Ramondre Stevenson. Isaac Guerrero. Tajay Spears. Ray Davis. Rashad White. Pat Freiermuth. Darnell Mooney. Keon Coleman. And then I'll just tell you who else I have like in my queue that's not in that. I have Jarquez Hunter in the queue. We have Dylan Sampson in the queue. We have
so you need 2
Neal in the queue. I need 2 of these guys.
But
well,
you need production.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
So
I got Kyle
when
Williams
I go back and I look
in
at
the queue.
what he has, I think he needs production now. He needs someone who's
I don't need
going to
production now.
No, I think from the running back perspective, you need someone who's going to get you to that point to where a Jordan Mason. You're right. Like
No, I don't need.
Who you
talk? Okay,
this is the way he does it.
Yeah, my fault.
Here's the way I think about it. So if I have some upside guys that I think are going to take over some backfields in the future, that means that I need some guys who can put up points now for me, because I may not make it to the
early
future.
season production.
Right, so that's where a guy like Najee, that's where a guy like Ramondre Stevenson comes in. So,
but when you look at players like that, you also have to understand that they have an expiration date possibly.
Yeah,
there's a point where there can.
And I'm trying to win
$0.
$1 million.
No. I'm just speaking. I'm not against what you're saying. I'm just saying that's the thought process.
But they all have an expiration date. And that expiration date could come from injury. Like some of them, like we may just miss.
No, I'm not.
That's true. Like Henderson is somebody who has been
expect.
injured. Like, Henderson obviously went in the 5th or I think, 4th to 5th round in this draft, right? He has an injury history. We talk about guys that are injury prone. It's like the rookies are like, Superman. Or they're like rookies can't get hurt in our minds. Like rookies can't get hurt. Like Genty can't get hurt. That's why his handcuff doesn't get drafted.
Right.
Because Genty could never get hurt. There's like that possibility of happening is just like no. He can't be touched. Untouchable.
Whatever happened to Zamir White?
He's still on the roster.
He's not that old. He got to still be.
Nobody talks about this. People do not like Zamir White. Don't even mention.
Like what happened? Like
we're gonna lose followers.
He's still alive, right? He's alive.
He's
right?
alive. I think he's still alive.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Nobody even talks about
Last year
that.
he was drafted as a
We're gonna have to
starter.
address that at
Put
some
out
point.
there. Okay.
We're gonna have to address that at some point.
Sure was.
Yeah. But yeah. So who y'all taking?
So personally,
Or who you taking? Because then you got to give me your whole life.
I got to take another running back.
So who you taking?
So I'll probably take Najee just because I believe in the talent of Najee, and I don't think Amarion Hampton is that
So it's the 10th round. It's the 10th round
of a running back, especially for a guy like Harbaugh. Like, he wants thumping running backs that he can load up with
10th, 11th round. Okay.
with carries. So I'd probably take Najee as one of those picks.
And then who's the second?
I have to go back and look at
Okay.
who you got again.
Dale, what's your thought process with this?
So I agree. I'd probably go Najee first because I'm not 100% convinced Amari Hampton takes the job, especially not at the gate.
Even like how they took him? With the,
I mean, they
with
did
his
take him in the
draft capital?
first round, but again, I've seen first rounders taken that still wait or they go into a timeshare.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Hampton fan, just to be full disclosure.
Nor was I.
But I do respect the draft capital.
Yeah.
I do respect the excitement. I do see that it was a need for them. But also I do know they gave Najee a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
You don't give that type of money for somebody to just be a backup. If
Yeah.
anything, you give that type of money to somebody that can be a good vet, the leadership, to again help mold the new guy. And they can run Najee on the ground knowing that after the season they don't have to deal with him anymore.
What was J.K. Dobbins taking that 1 year?
Last year?
No, when he was
Second rounder.
He was J.K. Dobbins. Okay, because I just remember, Roman was obviously with the
He was
Ravens.
the second round. But again,
and J.K. didn't do much his rookie
year.
year.
Yeah, he took a while to come in.
Yeah.
So
and J.K. was a better prospect.
And right now, to Chris's point, I think you should strongly consider a back that you are able to start week 1 since you have all these other upside-ish type picks. Now, I understand if you were against it, but just right now, with all the other options available, that's the route I would take just to get that safe pick. But then my next pick, I would probably, just from the names that you said, I'd probably actually go Mooney. I would go Mooney. Because Mooney,
That's very interesting.
he's in an offense that actually kind of excites me.
Yeah.
I'm a little excited about Penix as a quarterback.
Me too.
He had some pretty good games last year.
Yeah.
Like surprisingly good games. Like where did this come from type good games.
Yeah.
And you're in a position now in the draft where it's like nobody just sticks out as far as extreme value or a major starter.
Yeah.
Pittman's gone, right?
Pittman
gone. Just left, right? So if Pittman was there, by the way, it would have been Pittman. By far. But since Pittman's gone, I like Mooney. I like Mooney a lot. I think they could, if that offense is what we think it's going to be, remember that's a San Francisco type offense, then they can support 2 receivers.
Yeah. That's actually interesting because I never even considered Mooney right there.
Yeah, I know Mooney's, I don't know if I want to call him a sleeper, but Mooney has a lot of value, and that target tree was not that wide. I think it was like 3 receivers last year. And the third one was what, Ray McLeod?
Yeah, we want to talk about Pitts. Everybody keep, trying to get
that's what I would go right now. Again, I didn't really look too thoroughly as far as the available options, but from first glance, that's who I would go with.
All right, let's close out the show with the picks. Who you picking?
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
Okay,
Definitely not doing Ramondre.
while he's thinking about it, while he's the suspense, I want to throw some sleepers out there.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't mention. Well, I mentioned it last week, but I messed up his name, and I said I was going to come back and say the name properly. Now that he's not even a sleeper anymore. It's kind of pissing me off. Ja'Cory Merritt.
Oh yeah, I drafted him today.
Damn, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Is his name. He's not even a sleeper. He's a 7th round pick. How's a 7th round pick not a sleeper? Like, what are y'all doing out there? I saw this man get drafted in the 14th round in underdog the other day. 14? He's a 7th round pick. He's like 4th on the chart right now. He's supposed to be my sleeper. He's supposed to be there waiting on me at the end of the draft, like, here, pick me. But anyway, okay, he's no longer a sleeper. But Taj Brooks for the Bengals. He's a running back. I think he was a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Maybe a 5th round pick. I don't think it was a 4th round pick. Bengals don't have much behind Chase Brown.
Yeah.
I love Chase Brown's talent, but I'm not 100% convinced he can hold on a job just off the strength.
I'm not 100% sure that he's going to have the same volume that he did last year.
Why not?
Because I don't think that that's what they want. And if you really look
And
at
don't
it,
forget
you know
they
what
had Zach Moss initially. Zach Moss got hurt. That's what really put Chase Brown in that position in the first place.
And I don't know, like this, watching the games, like, he's electric at times and he can catch the ball and it's like a high-powered offense, but I don't know how efficient he was as an early down runner. Like, I don't know how efficient he was there. So I could easily see them saying, hey, let's keep him fresh.
Yeah.
Let's work somebody in there. And then if you get like a Taj Brooks in there, like Todd Brooks, I feel like is someone who could like almost immediately like show out and be like, oh
Yeah,
wow, like let's get him on the field. So, because I was someone who was like very high on Chase Brown, especially like immediately post draft. I was like, oh man, he escaped the gauntlet of like one of the most elite running back classes in NFL history. And then I just started kind of thinking, I was like, am I too high on, Chase Brown? Am I like just assuming that he's going to have the same volume?
Yeah.
Because that was out of necessity last year.
Yeah.
They tried to bring somebody
I
in.
got some more sleep.
We're running over
I
time.
know.
Sorry, my fault.
Real quick, a couple more.
All right.
Phil Maffa for the Cowboys, who I already mentioned. I'm just throwing his name out there again.
Right.
Jalen Lane for the Commanders. I
know
think he
that
can
is.
become wide receiver 3. I think he can take that De'Ami Brown role. And by the way, I love De'Ami Brown this year. You can throw him in as a sleeper. We talked about it last week. But Jalen Lane, I think he's the replacement for De'Ami Brown. Super fast guy, 4.3 guy. With that offense, I feel like he can grow with Jaden Daniels, especially with T-Mac going through a contract dispute right now, not in practice, he's giving the reps. And who else is there? Noah Brown?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on?
Yeah.
So, and then finally, he's not a rookie, but a guy that for some reason nobody likes this year. Juwan Johnson. And I don't understand why nobody wants to draft him this year.
Lock button.
But I feel like he's in a great position. He just signed a 3-year contract. The quarterback they just drafted in the second round was his quarterback in college.
I didn't know that.
Oh, my bad.
All right,
Like
guys.
nobody knows that.
Make your picks.
Okay, make your pick. My bad. That's
Make
it.
your
my
picks.
picks.
Who you picking?
All right, so we're gonna go Ray Davis.
Okay.
You're going Ray
I like
Davis.
that.
All
We're
right.
going Ray Davis. So Ray Davis is one.
I like that. I should have said that.
The other one I need to sleep on. We'll get back to you there.
Mooney. It's going to be Mooney White.
Yeah, he's
I
gonna
convinced him it's going to be Mooney White.
Please like Ray.
I mean, that's why I gotta sleep on it. That's
Thought I
why gotta
wasted
sleep
all
on it. Actually,
my
if I was like,
life, but
without
I
being
think I
honest,
changed
like,
my
I
mind.
really,
I was done growing up, had enough of chasing down the sun, but suddenly I can see every